My mother used to say, long time ago, whenever there would be any really catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. She would say, always look for the helpers.
It's gonna work. So, and also, of course, you've had success with every one of the other podcasts.
Yeah, we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't lost one yet.
Yeah, and now there's a lot of them, right? There's like, let's see, I'm just trying to go real quick here.
I stopped numbering them, but I'd say by the end of the week, there'll definitely be 20. We might be to 18.
There's a lot, yeah. There's 1, 2, 3, oh gosh, 5 rows. I can't track them all.
Plus the plus the 12 talent shows. So there's definitely over 30.
But what I really love about all of these podcasts is you're trying to inspire people. You're trying to enable people to understand that they have power and that perhaps their potential is ahead of them. And I think all of these, I've listened to some of the others who've done these podcasts, and they're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to provide uplifting support to people that are really on the verge of becoming known to themselves. I don't want that to sound too cryptic, but does life have meaning? Listen to these podcasts. Do you have anxiety and filled with depression for some reason? Listen to these meaning casts. Are you not clear what you should be doing with your life? Are you not clear what is important? Do you have a sense of what should and should not have meaning? Go to Joe Rooney's podcasts. So
that's kind of you, Jim.
My takeaway.
That's kind of you.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Give credit where credit is due.
So you said a couple weeks ago that the next time we spoke, you'd be delivering the podcast appearance of all podcast appearances.
It's interesting. I in between when we talk, I think almost every day about what would be the most useful, the most valuable thing that I would want to hear if I was one of the people that were tuning in. The podcast of all podcasts at the end of the day is always going to be about the slavery industry. The institutionalized, non-contested, nearly invisible sexual, child trafficking, and child slavery industry. And so, will I talk about that again today? I will. I want to talk about the whistleblower Frances Haugen and the risks that she took with her life to go public about human trafficking and how Facebook targets children and how their platform is being used by human traffickers. Now, the phrase traffic does not do justice to what's actually happening. You don't need someone to drive a truck in order to take a child to a customer. Frances Haugen really brought a lot of things to light here, but if there is the podcast, End All Podcasts, it is to raise awareness about missing children. And there is a really specific reason why I harp on that. It's not just evil. It's not just one of the top 10 most evil things. And this has been going on for hundreds of years. The reason why it's the podcast of all podcasts, the reason why missing children and the institutionalized child sex slavery industry is because, I'm not kidding you, Joe, I have really thought about this. I think it's the only thing that will wake most of the people up. We talk, there's always a comment about global warming, a comment about how all these politicians made promises and they didn't come through. Or, another corporation, another bank that lied to us, but they apologized. This there's countless types of things that are wrong, but people are so normalized to global warming. They're so normalized to the reduction of animal species, the reduction of biodiversity. It's incomprehensible how many animals are left on this planet compared to what there were 100 years ago. It's not that people don't care. I think that people care. But what is it that a person makes time for? What is it that becomes a priority? What makes you want to get out of your chair, talk to a friend about this? It's the missing children. All right. When this stuff, when some of this was brought to light with Hillary Clinton and Podesta's emails. Now you're talking about hundreds of thousands of emails that were brought to light from WikiLeaks in the day before the election in November of 2016. Julian Assange, of course, is no longer around.
We forget about that. Did he
Yeah,
pass?
I know. That's the thing.
Did
Like
he
everybody
pass?
forget. I mean, let's face it,
He
right? I mean,
disappeared
that
for sure.
You know, there were countless references to pizza and ice cream and John Podesta holding spirit cooking events at his house and various satanic witches named with names. Their names. I mean, I've looked these people up. It's like, oh yeah, they're really dedicated to evil, aren't they? Or Podesta's brother, who was attending all these things, who commissioned a sculptor to create live replicas of all the bodies that cannibalist ate. What's his name? The famous cannibalist in
Hannibal Lecter?
No.
Gosh,
this is the guy who would chop off the heads and stick them in suitcases.
Dahmer? Who else?
But Jeffrey Dahmer. So here you have people in government. I mean, the bottom line is that clearly that was enough to make a fair amount of people not vote for the status quo. I'm not a supporter of Republicans. I'm not a supporter of Democrats. I think it's an excuse to avoid important issues, or it's a form of distraction to keep people showing up at their jobs every day and not complaining about the missing children or the other problems. But I do want to stay on point. And I know
Please.
that I always end up commandeering these conversations. So you just have to interrupt me vigorously.
I'll interrupt you so that we have a good flow and that you just don't, talk for 30 minutes or an hour without me saying anything. But we'll make sure to keep you on track too. So fair point.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Great. Well, I feel better about that. That's good. That's how it should be. So there are sources, there are media disclosures that Frances Haugen was some kind of a plant, was working at the behest of entities that had been censored by Facebook. I've not looked into that. I'm not surprised that these allegations are promoted widely. I mean, anybody who opposes the powerful are going to be told that they're a conspiracy theorist, that their stuff are lies, that they took money to say what they had to say. So what I think I have a very good barometer of truth. I think I can tell. Here are the criteria that I use to determine if a whistleblower is telling the truth or not. Number one, is it bad news? If it's bad news, then okay, that's what whistleblowers do. The second thing is, do they have a risk that they're taking? Will they lose their job? In the case of Frances Haugen, yes, she lost her job. Facebook fired her immediately after the disclosure to 60 Minutes. Will they risk their life? There are the number of bodies of people that are cold because they protested against the media, the government, the status quo. Pretty general. But as we know, that if you oppose these things, and if you have family, people's families have been murdered, whistleblowers have been murdered, If I wanted to take up all the time, I would have created various lists, but there's very few controversial topics that are allowed to be conducted without violence. I think that that's true for the world. It's absolutely true here in the United States. Frances Haugen, and you got to get the spelling of her name right, because you're not going to find her name easily on the internet. If you go to Google, you better make sure that you've got the spelling of her name, because I did not have the spelling of her name, but I went back to my notes that I took when this first came out, and it's spelled Haugen. My dog agrees with me.
With an exclamation point from Fido.
Frances, Frances. Come here, Stella. Haugen, Haugen. The story is that 3 days. So the story is that she filed an official whistleblowing complaint using Facebook's internal process. It was supposedly anonymous. Stella, come here. It was supposedly anonymous, but she was wise enough to have a full plan. She disclosed on 60 Minutes the following day, it was a Sunday, to discuss her allegations against Facebook. Her allegations are that, number one, Facebook, there is internal documentation, internal memos that she got her hands on, which is the internal research by the marketing departments. She was a product manager. She was part of these departments. She did not have a decision-making authority, but she was able to get access, get her hands on these documents. She was able to publish some of them, where Facebook knows internally, thanks to their own market research, that if they promote hate speech, they will sell more ads. If they're that they know and others know that the platform, meaning Facebook.com, is a vehicle that traffickers use to connect customers with product, to connect wealthy people with children for sex.
Isn't it crazy?
Apple, I got to tell you this, Joe. This is a huge
well, it's public
thing that
knowledge.
I'm saying.
You share that with people, and you said it before, like they get we're numb to all this, right? Because I saw that stat that I think it was when censorship of Trump and other things was very prominent, I guess, a year ago, and at the turn of the year, I saw something came out when I was telling people about these other platforms that I was on, and somebody said, well, that platform, but geez, I'm going to stay off there because it's nothing but weirdos. And I said, well, really? How about this stat? And there's nothing, silence, right? And the stat I was sharing was the one you were saying, which was like, it was empirical evidence that, I don't know, I'm not going to say what body, something like the FBI was basically saying, yeah, we found that there's more sex trafficking going on Facebook than anywhere that's ever happened yesterday, and then tomorrow it'll be more again. And you know what I mean? It was like that much. It was just like extraordinary amount. And with all the censorship and all the locking down, that's one thing you'd think you want to get in front of, but obviously it continues.
It absolutely continues, right? So this is huge, and it got through to you, Joe, and it's getting through to others, because this is really the only issue out of all of the tremendously terrible issues that we all have to experience on this planet that are global, not just Americans, but global. The fact that 480,000 children under the age of 12 go missing every year in the United States, and that worldwide the estimate is 8 million children, with places like Australia, the UK, and Germany really blasting the levels of what people thought was possible in terms of missing children. Okay, this is the one thing that's going to wake people up. The Sandy Hook massacre was the massacre of children. I remember that day. I learned about it really just by walking around on the street. I heard people, overhearing people pretty much everywhere I walked in Manhattan that day. People standing there having a cigarette, talking to somebody. What about the children that were hurt? What would you do? What should I do? And then I thought, whoa, I got to stop what I'm doing, look this up real quick, and find out what's going on in the morning. And this got people's attention. It's different. You're talking about something that went in with a gun and murdered people. I'm talking about the fact that there is an internal Facebook study that Frances Haugen got her hands on that she leaked to various sources that Facebook says to itself. 13.5% of UK, United Kingdom teenage girls in one survey said that their suicidal thoughts became more frequent after starting on Instagram. I'm going to just quickly read this. Another leaked study found that 17%, this is from NPR, okay? This is not from some far-fetched website. Another study that was leaked by Frances Haugen, Haugen, found that 17% of teenage using Instagram. 32% of teenage girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. I mean, is this bullshit? It's real stuff. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, accused Facebook of intentionally targeting children under age 13 with addictive products. The fact addictive, well, Frances came out and said it's called stickiness, the official name. And I hear this word all the time in my industry, but it's a very common phrase, stickiness. How do you get people to come back? Well, if I'm a heroin dealer and I want stickiness, it's called addiction. If I'm a tobacco manufacturer, I put nicotine in the cigarettes and I call it stickiness. If I'm Facebook and I see that I'm selling more ads with hate speech, or what would be the phrase for when women and girls feel bad about their bodies because of others on the platform making them feel less than how they should be feeling, whatever that phrase is. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. People feel bad, girls feel worse when they already feel bad about their bodies, and there's just more of the same body shame that is selling ads. Facebook exploited teens using powerful algorithms that amplify their insecurities. This is a subcommittee chair, Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut. The big one for me, and I mentioned this to you in a text earlier today, Apple Corporation. Okay, Apple, big company. They make the iPhone, remember? They have threatened to remove the Facebook app from its downloadable application store because of these things, because of the things that I've just described. The
I didn't know that.
institutionalized, it's huge. I'm looking at it right here on the,
wow.
I mean, how many, here's CBSnews.com indicates it right there. I'm not making this stuff up. It says, there was a quote from one of the internally leaked, one of the Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, misled members of Congress in March 2021 when he testified about Facebook on the health of young girls. Zuckerberg said that he did not believe his platform harms children. Meanwhile, the internal study that was leaked says that, in quotes, we, meaning Facebook, make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. We know bullying occurs on Facebook, online bullying. We know that people, students, kids are committing suicide because of the intense bullying that takes place on Facebook. And here's a company that not only has the right and the privilege and has never seen a law to prevent them from censoring anybody, anything that they choose to do so. They're not the only ones. It's just that they've got more money. I mean, when you have a certain amount of money, whether you're Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, there's not that many companies that are at this level. You're immune. You could do whatever you want. I mean, Zuckerberg sat in front of Congress. I remember it was a couple of years ago when he did, and I guess he did it more or less recently, earlier this year. So what? He shows up for a couple of weeks, tells his story, walks out of there scot-free. No follow-up, no enforcement, maybe a few newspaper, whatever articles, media articles about it. Frances Haugen, everybody's forgotten about her. And people have forgotten about Sandy Hook. People have completely forgotten about all of the inconsistencies during 9/11. I mean, 9/11, you had the CIA headquarters, the World Trade 7, and I was in there all the time. I was in there the day before, brought to the ground At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 hours after the plane struck, just brought down, collapsed into its own footprint. You had the BBC journalist Jane Stanley reporting on the fall, the collapse of World Trade 7 30 minutes before it even happened. And she talked about it for 30 minutes. And you can see that there's an earplug in her ear. She's a journalist. She's working from the BBC. This was broadcast throughout, BBC 1, 2, 3, 4, and ITV throughout the British Isles. We got a hold of it because of the internet. You could actually see these videos. People don't remember that we had a president that was shot through the head in 1963. I mean, if you're the president and you're going to take a ride in a car that doesn't have a cover on, well, how safe is that? What's the point in even having a president if someone can take them out as easily as that? People are not even discussing this. The only thing that people will discuss is there's some kind of it might be the biggest fear of all, that children are being tortured, exploited, destroyed sexually. I think that this is everybody's worst fear. And when you start to wake up, when you start to feel that things are not right, and it's not probably going to be about global warming, and you start to do the research, you start to bring up on Google child trafficking whistleblower, sex industry whistleblower, Clinton, Podesta, emails, Julian Assange, whistleblower. These are not hard searches to do. But like everyone, I was afraid to do those.
So, yeah, Jim,
but I did.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because it's really easy, especially for somebody who has been seeing these things and is awake to the facts and is open-minded when new things happen, not to swallow the pill given to me by CNN, Fox, MSNBC, you name it. Right. So, for somebody like me, I get very emotional. I think people are, unfortunately, there is one more thing that they're afraid of and that they care about more than protecting children, and that's protecting how other people see them. And if culture is created that if you look at these things with a critical eye and you talk about them, you will be maligned, sidelined, and silenced by maybe your neighbor, maybe your friend, maybe your parents, maybe your brother and sister. They're not going to pay attention to them, because there is one more thing people care about more than protecting children, and is protecting their self-esteem and how they connect with people. And nobody wants to put themselves on the outside looking in. Right. And to stand up for these things is immediately you're going to have to stand up to them, right? If you accept them and you start talking about them, you're going to have to stand up to them. You're going to have to push back against people, and people don't want to do that, because I need friends, I need family. And well, what were you talking about again? Isn't it dinner yet?
Right.
So
right.
I mean, that's my 2 cents. I mean, this is a real issue. The numbers are real, the stats are real, the news, the stories, the reports of what's going on, they're all real. But I think that what I had put out there, what people care about more is probably a lot more, because you would expect something to be done. I mean, the numbers you put out in terms of how many children go missing a year, it's just unbelievable. I feel helpless, right? And I'm glad that we have an opportunity to talk about it. But the overall numbness to these things is really concerning. And it's what's concerning even more is that people who have been bestowed with the energy, and I don't mean the energy like you can run forever, right? But there's so much in us that can push out good into the world or anything into the world, most of us just really put a damper on that. And whether it's addressing child trafficking, childhood abduction, addressing your hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Hey, I don't like how you treated somebody else. That was a foul, right? There's so much concern about, getting put on the outside, or, what do other people think of me? It has to be good or else. It's just a shame that we care so much about the people around us, where there's the spirit of good that is really what we should be attracted to attracting. And that's not going to be an immediate benefit if the spirit of good isn't within somebody else in front of you. I talked about this on a podcast I recorded earlier today. How you go about the work yourself and creating a character and a reputation that's valuable will, over time, if you share that enough and share it in a meaningful way, will come back to you with more value, right? But you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it just because you do it. You have to do it repetitively over time, iteratively, and with improvements. And you have to be focused on high aims. And if you're able to do that as a business person, entrepreneur, creator, you don't have to worry about it. Something's going to happen. It might be after you die. I'm sorry, but if you do those things, you're doing the right thing. You're attracting the right thing. The talent economy, it's ahead of people, right? It goes over most people's heads.
Yeah.
But it's important. Yeah. It's important to keep talking about it because it does call to that higher spirit, right? And personally, I have a lot of struggle staying on mission with the talent economy because it is difficult, right? But I have to keep reminding myself of what I'm attracting. It's not the immediate attention of the people around me, because that's secondary to, pouring into the earth, and into the universe, so that, the spirit will connect to it and that will draw the right things to the right message. So anyway, people are so concerned about immediate gratification in terms of the feedback from their immediate surroundings. It's just impossible for them to work on higher level things. And I think that's a shame. People need to completely not hear what people say, not hear their wife, not hear their parents, not hear their neighbors or friends, right? If it's right, it's right. I don't hear you.
Whoa, dude, that you've just said a lot of really, really important things. What I captured was, number one, kind of they're increasingly deaf, dumb, and blind when it comes to these important issues. It's normalized. People say there's nothing I can do. It switches off activity. You talked about how if a person was to step up, if a person was to defend another, meaning children, if a person was to get out of their comfort zone and say something against their company or against one of the status quo establishments, it's hard. Creating the talent economy, which is only beneficial, is hard. And it requires a lot of repetition. I heard that loud and clear. When I think about repetition, I think about it in terms of massively distributed micro voice. So I've talked on the podcast, 5, 6 or so times. If all of the people who are waking up spent a couple minutes talking to somebody about these issues, the cumulative effect would end the problem in a couple of days. A couple of days. So we are worried about losing our jobs. We are worried about our reputation and what people will say. We don't want to be called speculative theorist. So here is my advice. I want to just spend a couple minutes, if you're cool with this, to teach people how to be a protected whistleblower. And Frances Haugen, Haugen, really kind of set the example, because she's not dead. She's still alive. I checked that out before I wanted to see, is she posted? Like, is there any kind of proof of life? We've got no proof of life from Julian Assange. Julian Assange, of course, was the founder of WikiLeaks, which housed all of the hundreds of thousands of emails that were lifted from Hillary Clinton and Podesta's personal websites. He's just, there's no proof of life. He used to step out on, when he was detained at the Ecuadorian embassy, he used to step out onto the balcony every single day to greet over 1,000 people who wanted to visually see that he was alive. Yeah, we haven't seen that in a couple of years. So how do you avoid this? How do you avoid that kind of penetrating trouble? The first thing is you got to know in your soul that this is important and that somebody's got to do something, and that I've got to do my bit. It doesn't have to be large. Frances clearly is intelligent. She graduated Harvard University. She is working for a big time company, so clearly she was vetted and must be very talented. She is well spoken, really quite eloquent. She does not get flustered, and she was well dressed. These are important, very important factors. You got to do your homework. You have to know your numbers. When I come on and I talk about stuff, I need to keep repeating 480,000 missing children every single year in this country alone. Get your facts straight. Anticipate the questions that you're going to be asked. It's really easy. Everybody's going to want to know, well, who are you? What gives you the credibility to be able to say these things? What proof do you have? Anticipate these questions. It's totally legitimate. Make sure that where you work, you file the anonymous, in quotes, complaint about what you see and what you experience that you know is not good. Then at the same time, simultaneously, develop a plan, make sure that there is that you make a public disclosure within 24 hours on the heels of your anonymous disclosure. It's really important to make the anonymous post, to file with your company.
So Jim, real quick, you're just so that people catch what's going on here.
Yeah.
You're going through how, right? So
yes,
we just started a conversation that's in essence a manual for how to go ahead and be a whistleblower and protect yourself. And Jim
correct.
just talked about point 1 and point 1A.
Yes, that's exactly right. This is a quick how-to, because I think Frances Haugen did a remarkable job of keeping herself alive. She got fired from her job, but who the hell cares? I mean, there are so many jobs right now. We have not seen a more scarce labor market in the entire history of being alive. I could tell you that right now. Gosh, I wish I was getting out of college right now. I could step into any kind of career job that I wanted to without fear of a single rejection letter. So to be afraid of losing your job is shouldn't be a real concern, okay? Maybe it's time for you to make more money and to go somewhere else. If you're going to get out of your comfort zone, this is a really, really good reason, because countless people know that something weird is going on with where they work. People are doing jobs and they're participating, perhaps unintentionally, in conversations that are clearly creepy, that they know in their heart, oh gosh, I really wish that this would change, or why did that person say that? Build your case. Stay an insider. Do not reveal your plans until you have your protection in place. You need to have many media outlets poised to receive your press release. Press release, that's just a fancy word for a letter. Compose your statement. Present your facts. Present your facts in a way that others can validate, that they can look them up. That's absolutely essential. You might be the only one, but if there's more than one of you, say in a group, you've been assigned to a project or you're working for someone who just clearly seems to be really creepy, something's going on. I'm not talking about the cultural revolution in the 60s in mainland China. I'm not talking about having the children turn in their parents. I'm not talking about false accusations. You make an accusation, you blow the whistle, it's going to be hard, okay? And for your families, but you have to do it a particular way. You prepare, you make sure you can speak to your story, you present your facts, you give your company the benefit of the doubt and you file the anonymous whistleblower filing so that you can give them a chance so that later they can't say to you, well, you never gave us a chance. You never told anybody in management. Tell people in management. Most companies have a means, a formal process that they say is anonymous for you to be able to express concern. Typically, it's for sexual discrimination or for sexual harassment, because that stuff is real. I know a lot of companies that were fined to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, at least in this country, sexual harassment is enforced. It can go backwards or sideways if you don't really have your act together. You got to make sure that you really have your facts, you got your dates, you got your numbers, you've got your URLs, your web addresses, you've got others who can validate what you're saying. You need to have a couple of credible people, if possible, to back you up. And then when you go and you do the podcast, or here's the invitation, contact Joe Rooney, our host, ask him if you can tell your story on the Meaning Cast. If you want to provide meaning in your life and others, it is incumbent on you to tell the truth, to share what you know. And I'll tell you, I started to kind of wake up in 2010, and I have just kind of watched for 12 years. I can't even get into this. The evidence is all around us. It's very noticeable if you know what the big picture is. The big picture is not a good story. It's not a good news story for what we're describing. But if you know that human trafficking, that's the phrase that's used a lot in the media, is real, and you just wonder if it's somehow visible in your small environment, you will see it is constant. Putting those wealthy customers together with those children for sex slave purposes is continuous. It is ridiculously prevalent. But most people, if not 99%, do not see it. There are many, 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 many reasons for this. I will suggest a single one, that the person who doesn't notice, they're not ready to wake up. And that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. This is an unusual time frame because time in history, there are so many people waking up. When I talk about waking up, I'm talking about people that are giving themselves voice. They're getting off the couch. They're not just complaining. They're discussing serious issues that they know aren't right, that are not getting addressed, and they're wondering why. They have this weird feeling in their stomach that something's not right, and they can't live with it anymore. A person that is woken up has almost literally come out of a sleep, come out of a type of consciousness that could be considered sleep. Physically, a way of being where you do not notice that someone is crying and you do not act on it. A way of being where you see that someone's feelings got hurt by something that you said, and you don't follow up with, hey, did I make you upset? The person who does not follow up and does not ask, did I hurt your feelings with what I just said, is still asleep. And this is the history of the planet. But the internet has done something very different for the first time. Obviously, a lot of people woke up when the printing press became available. You wouldn't have the 99 Theses from Martin Luther creating Lutheranism and the beginning of Protestantism if he didn't have, number one, he needed to know how to read Latin. And number two, there had to be some books out there that really kind of helped him to compose his case. So increased forms of communication are the biggest threat to the sex industry. Not me. Who am I? I'm some guy living out here, you know. What do I know? I could tell you what I know is that I'm not a threat to anybody. I am one of countless tens of millions of people that are waking up on this day, on November 16th. Every single day that passes, there are thousands of new people waking up. I am not responsible for that. I'm reaching out. I've got something to say, and there are people who are listening. I would presume it's not a coincidence. I would presume that if there are people listening, it's because they were meant to be, they were guided here. Who the hell knows? I don't understand energy to the extent that others do. I can tell you though, I don't think that anything happens as an accident. I think that everything has meaning. The things that we think are accidents, well, how do you know they're an accident? How can you prove that? I mean, just because you haven't done the effort to figure out what the cause and the effect was. My point is that, hey, we should, if people are saying, oh, we got to stop this guy. He's spilling the beans. He's talking too much about the child sex slavery industry. What do you think? I'm the only one? You can't even count the number of people who are talking about this. And tomorrow there'll be more people. And the day after that, there will be more people. Not because of us who are talking, but because of the internet. So good luck, traffickers, if you think you're going to turn off the internet. Because that's what happened in the Arab Spring in the country of Egypt. Long story. We won't get to how the internet was actually taken down there. It was actually taken down by its own government because they didn't want the spread of discontent to continue. When that internet went down, it was the same as removing people's food. You had pitchforks, torches, you had people with guns, you had everything you can imagine. People amassed to get that internet back. So I've got bad news for the traffickers. You're not putting the toothpaste back in the tube. The internet's here. People know how to build it. People could mine the silicon tomorrow and have a working computer in a month. All right? All you need is enough heat to melt that silicon. And you don't need an electric furnace. There's lots of ways to generate that kind of heat. Chemical.
Let me stop.
I know I'm going off here.
Hold on. Just to get some empirical evidence and some experiential knowledge into what you just said, so people can tie it to the real world. It is true. The internet is here to stay, and there's this thing called Web3. Jim, have you ever heard of Web3?
Little, please.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still. I don't even know how to define it, but it's basically, the blockchain of the internet. It's the open source of open source. It's the uncorruptible creation. Geneva, their goal is to completely turn this platform over to the universe, in that they're not going to have any infrastructure. It's all going to be just living wherever it happens to live, running on whatever protocols that are public and people are able to communicate over. And it's all going to be driven by that Web3. I don't know if it's going to be blockchain, but I don't want to speak too much into it. But the way it is the way the platform's being created is to fulfill this pure model of consumption and production of information and how you build your digital universe, right? So it's there, and people are literally building it. Like the creators of Geneva, they're building a tool for the world, and the tool is most valuable when it can pull people off of Facebook groups. I was told that by the people creating it, right? They are the answer to the poison that is Facebook and their groups model. People want to be in community. People are in their houses all the time. Right. People want to engage with people all the time and share and do things. And I talked about, are you doing things that are connected to the spirit? Or are you doing things to get likes, shares, emojis? And Facebook is fulfilling all those base instincts to have good feelings come from the wrong places. In Geneva, it's not going to be perfect. There will be people that, copy Geneva, put it on their network, and do bad things with it. Let's be honest. But there's going to be far more good than bad, you would hope, given that people can remove themselves from these bad influences. So this uncorruptible internet that you're talking about, people are building it already. Like you said, it's not as, far, you can get a little bit closer to real life than mine the silicon, get some heat, and make a computer. Right. No, it's happening. Like it's here. So anyway, right. I don't mean to derail you, but
no, not in the slightest, Joe. And I think that your comments are not just valuable, but you're speaking from firsthand evidence, because you told me that you recently spoke with one of the key authors of the Geneva platform, that they called you. This is big, okay? We're not talking about information that has come from some unidentified source. We're not talking about information that has come from a third-party source, meaning hearsay. We're not talking about firsthand information that you got online. We're talking about firsthand information that you got personally by interacting with a human being who does this for a living. That to me is like, my criteria is almost met perfectly. I would love to have a way to also kind of, see if this individual, the author of Geneva, has said this to other people. I have a feeling I could probably find. If he's not, I'd be surprised. I would doubt that you're the first person. But think about that. Your information is almost certainly accurate. That the idea is to take people out of the toxicity of the Facebook group, the toxicity of, hey, my body is too fat, or the toxicity of, I can bully this person because they're never going to know who I am. Blockchain, real quick, right? I can't give an explanation of blockchain. I don't know it well enough.
But we should get better, actually, Jim. This is important. I was thinking of that when I was like, I can't explain it. I was like, gosh, I got to be able to explain this, because I'm getting more and more passionate about it, and I'm finding more and more reasons to need to give a cogent explanation of Web3 and blockchain. So I feel you.
Well, then can you tell us?
No, I mean,
all right. Well, then here, let me tell you what
I'll look it up, and we'll read a definition while we're talking. Let me scan around.
Yeah, that's cool. So we know that it was invented at the same time as Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency. And the reason is that the crypto was going to be the first currency that was not manipulated by some sovereign entity. And the reason why it could exist is because every single transaction is kept in a register, right, called the blockchain. And it is immutable. You can't change it. People have put the supposedly the original U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence into the blockchain because they're concerned that those two documents will get censored, or that we will just simply forget about them, which is really not impossible, folks. Blockchain will become very old-fashioned in 5 years. It could become obsolete in 10 years. Why? Because that's what happens to technology. Technology is constantly getting obsolete, and it's getting replaced by new emerging technology. So what will happen is that what we call blockchain will have a new name. It will be profoundly superior to anything that we have now. But what I can assure you is that while technological elites like Joe and I, let me say it differently, people that have spent their careers building and selling information technology, even before the dawning of the internet in the 90s, will be able, today, we can't even provide a really good explanation of blockchain. I just gave you a summary. Joe's going to look it up. He's going to report on this in a second. But here's what I could tell you about what's going to be like in 5 years. You, meaning whomever's listening here, anybody, is going to be able to look at the blockchain, and they're just like you look at your statements from the bank. We all have our banking application downloaded to our phone. I doubt that there is a single person with a bank account that does not have the app for their bank. And when they open it up, they want to see if they got paid, on time, if they got paid correctly. Everybody loves to see the deposit in their bank. It's almost always correct, right? And they also want to see, oh, wait a minute, did I pay that other person? Or did that person Venmo me? Did that money come in? Did that money leave? So you click the button, you look at your register. You look at all the transactions going back to as far back as you want to go. This is what will happen with blockchain. It requires accountability. Every transaction that happens will have a timestamp, will have a variety of identifiers, so that you really, it's going to make it very, very hard. If the world moves to crypto, it's going to be really hard to pay for child sex without some kind of physical currency, whether it's cash or whether it's gold. Blockchain is going to improve lives like you can't imagine, because it'll be very, very difficult to hide activity. Is this Big Brother? No, because it's open to everyone. The concept of Big Brother that performs global surveillance to know your exact location and your behavior so that they can predict what you're going to do and what you're going to say, that is what Big Brother is. They hold that information to themselves. They're not keeping it visible for anybody and their brother, right? Facebook has more information on you than you even know about. Why are they not making it freely available to everybody so that we can all learn from it? Well, the answer is obvious. You can't make money doing that. Facebook has no interest in that. There's proof that they know they can sell more ads by getting people angry for no reason, leading them down a series of pictures and sidebar graphics that you end up impulsively clicking on, and then you are taken, and then your emotion is built, and then it takes you to another kind of a follow-on ad. Every time you click, that's more money for them. And then ultimately you feel shitty about how you look. You have doubts about what you're saying. You're going to start self-censoring. Facebook, they have more. These companies, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, they have as much money as one can imagine. Consequently, they can do whatever they want. No one, if you have that much money, you do not have to, and you do not abide by law. You could, if you have that much money, you could hire every attorney. Amazon could hire every attorney in the United States, and there'd be no attorneys left over to prosecute you. I mean, this is not a fantasy. Do I need a calculator? Do I need to run a spreadsheet right now in order to talk about what that kind of money can obtain? No, we all know that once you have a certain level of money, law does not apply. And by the way, there aren't even that many laws that apply to child trafficking. I have done the research. I have seen that truck drivers, crossing the Mexican border, these are that an 18-wheeler is filled with kids, and they I've actually seen that a couple of these adults got arrested. They're just poor people who are driving these trucks. I guess they have no conscience. Who I guess they're missing the oxytocin receptor, the compassion gene. Who knows? Maybe they don't even know what's in the back of the truck. Of course, that's probably what is most likely happening. And I'm sure that it's really sound insulated. But at least somebody's getting arrested. But I'll tell you the truth. It's not like you're going to hear about that in the news. You're not going to. The story about how the number of missing children is going to go down is not selling ads. Were you going to had you just looked up the blockchain thing, Joe?
Yeah,
Am I still?
I did. Yeah, no, I'm glad. So, Jim, I was lost in what you were saying. Because you get back into something that makes me very emotional. But the thing about Facebook and YouTube is they're really bad. They're Web 2, right? So I'm going to set up Web 3 by going through Web 1 and Web 2. Mm-hmm. So we'll go back to Web 1 before we get to Facebook and YouTube. So Web 1, that's the first phase of the internet, characterized by users usually interact with the web and they get some information. They read and then they can write something, really textual, really just passing textual information back and forth. Not very dynamic, all very manual. Okay. That's Web 1, but it opened up free flow of information. Awesome thing. Web 2 comes along, and this is where the users created content. I think you've talked about this, right? You had a point of the internet where it was people were passing information. That was Web 1. And now Web 2, people are creating information, right? They can open up a browser and within a click, they're typing, right? Or they're sharing a link. It became easier to create websites with Web 2, with WordPress and Blogger and things like that, right? Yeah. So now you put the creation of the content into the hands of everyone. Mm-hmm. So the downside of Web 2 is that this very proprietary internet, the content was created by individuals who gave their information to proprietary companies, but they also gave private information as well, right? So
Yeah.
there's not a very open nature to Web 2. Actually, it's very closed, right? Because what rose in Web 2 were these centralized platforms, and the freedom and the openness disappeared. You were able to create more freely, share more freely, but the trust of these platforms is completely non-existent. They shouldn't be trusted because
Right.
it's in their business model. They exploit your information and they exploit your emotions.
Correct.
So here comes Web 3. This is the next step of the internet. I'm kind of reading here, as you might be able to tell. I'm trying not to read. So it's being built currently. And here's what defines it. Web 3 refers to an internet that is made possible by decentralized networks. So you think of a decentralized network, you think of blockchain, you think of crypto, right? So if you understand that, hopefully you do at this point, what crypto means in terms of it's decentralized. It's not part of a central monetary system. It's living on this electrical platform called the internet, and is all decentralized, right? Where the information lives isn't on one single server. Where the compute lives isn't on one single server. That's all distributed. But the key is innovation in these networks is that no individual entity controls that information because they're so distributed. So because it's not centralized, it can be trusted. Now, there's a lot, you probably have, well, how? You're going to have to dig deeper because the short explanation isn't going to go into that. And I'll provide some links, I think, in the description of this video. But just go on a little bit. So because every user and operator of these networks must follow the same set of hard-coded rules, they're known as consensus pools, right? So everybody's following these same rules that are visible in public. Everybody's operating in public. So you have the eyes and the ears of a network of people and developers and creators and verifiers. You can't escape their eyes. So these networks allow value or money to be transferred between people, right? So the decentralization of information and the decentralization of currency and the spread of trust amongst thousands and millions of users and creators and verifiers, as opposed to Facebook, creates this new world of the internet called Web3, where you have no centralization of money or information. And that opens up the possibilities for the things that we're talking about, to be able to escape them, right? So now we go back to Web 2 and Facebook and stuff. I uploaded a video on YouTube this morning, and it had to do with a school board in my local area silencing a speaker. The gentleman had he had said that he made a flippant comment about the school nurse, and the board president immediately said, "Hey, you can't do that," and he just ignored her, didn't raise his voice, kept talking, and then he's like, "What? Wait," and he still didn't raise his voice. He was just like, kept talking, and within like 10 seconds of him saying, just very, he said the flippant remark was, she must have Munchausen by proxy because I don't understand how she could be doing these things, right? Probably not a nice thing to say. Who knows this nurse? So I totally, so I totally do not, support using that type of language against somebody for no reason whatsoever without like real hard evidence and documentation. Like that's not right. But what also isn't right is what ensued, right? There is a definite desire to silence this man, right? And I'm done. Officer Boyle, please take him away. And I caught wind of this, went ahead and shared that video on YouTube, and it was taken down by YouTube. Yeah, and Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Everybody's so ready to throw the Bill of Rights into the toilet. I mean, does anybody know what the Bill of Rights are? Have you
no.
read them?
The fascinating thing are the people defending this.
I mean,
Listen, like I don't, support, his insult at all, but I also don't support a power drunk, elected official taking an opportunity to flex her muscle, and totally disrespect him back. It doesn't,
yeah,
it doesn't, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is not justified in that setting, right?
yeah. It's not a civilized
No.
uh,
So
way to engage.
yeah, they're both guilty of being uncivil. And so the full story is, I got wind of it when I first woke up that, somebody was tased and arrested. So I upload this video, and sure enough, I was left to believe by watching this video that the man was tased and arrested, because as soon as Officer Boyle came in, or really as soon as the school board member, president, decided that she was done listening to this man, the camera person took the camera off the, switch scenes, went right back to the, full shot, wide shot of the board. Now you're not looking at this guy. They cut off the mic as well, but
Right.
another mic was picking up some things, ambiently. And as you're looking at the board, all you hear is, "What are you going to tase me now?" And
Oh.
that's the last thing you hear, and that's the last thing you see.
Yeah.
And a viewer of that would have no reason to believe that that man wasn't tased and arrested.
Yep.
So because of the censorship, on top of the arrogance and really the poor behavior of both of them, the uncivilized behavior of both. So it was capitulated by censorship because they decided what was appropriate to see or not. We were left with what they let us see, and it wasn't very good.
Right.
It didn't come out until several hours later. Somebody was able to show me footage that somebody was able to capture on their cell phone, and the man, thank God, was not tased and was not arrested. And he definitely did not make a good example of himself over the minute or two that he was, that the mic was off and we were waiting, while the situation was being taken care of. But that sure to heck would have been a lot better. It would have been unfortunate for him because he would have come out looking a heck of a lot worse for his language and his attitude and his behavior against the police officers. It would have been really bad for that guy. But the censorship damaged the whole situation because there was no way to understand the truth, and nobody's releasing that video. Even though I've seen it, I'm not going to release it. I'm not going to take it. It's not mine to, it was shared with me in confidence, and, I'm not going to do anything with it. But it sure as heck would have been a lot better to not censor it, because there would have been no mix up as to what happened. So this Web 2 is really destroying society because it's created a situation where it gives people the sense of control and power, and it gives them the sense of, I'm making a just contribution, right? But the information you receive is tainted if it's coming through these sources, and your ability to actually do something that's valuable and lasting is non-existent because you can be censored. I think in this case, it really could be and I should think about trying to document more of this, because it really could be a case study against Web 2 and the dangers of centralized control and censorship, centralized control of information by the way the school board was using Web 2, the way YouTube was allowing the information to be shared. And it's just ugly, right? That was all Web 2 created. If censorship was removed, if that power to change the camera, to turn it off was removed, in Web 3, people might be able to control cameras. I don't know, right? I don't know. but like, you see what I'm saying, right? Like, there's nothing good about censoring, and there's nothing good about that situation.
I know
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry. Yeah.
I'm kind of floating there, but I
Yeah,
guess
no,
we
no,
just
I'm
wrap
with
it
you.
up.
Well, yeah.
The information you're getting is tainted. So how can you actually go ahead and stand there? And anyway, so I'll stop.
No, and I like to end on a positive note. And what you've just basically pointed out is that number one, censorship, not helpful. Number two, centralized anything, whether it's centralized banking, centralized power, like a government, centralized money, like a Federal Reserve Bank, centralized internet, like having Facebook run the show, have all of their one location be the entity that provides us with all of our communication. So all of these things, you don't. Here's my opinion: to those prospective whistleblowers that are out there, get the word out, do it in a smart, protected way. Have many outlets on the day that you release. Do your fact checking, get your numbers, be ready to answer the question, what proof do you have? And then get ready to be ignored.
We went on a nice Web3 tangent there, didn't we? We totally
Well,
got
no,
off
because I'm ready to
to-
bring it back. So Web3, right? So we had to have the internet in order to discover this thing was valuable, and then we meaning people had to start or were given or became popular cell phones. Cell phones are really just social media devices. You're not going to find anything about Frances Haugen on the phone. All right, break out your laptop, do your research on your laptop. Web 3, what you're describing, so Web 2 was the bastardization, it was the degradation of this very powerful technology that we call the internet and through the phone. And that means that people are becoming more deaf, dumb, and blind. People are bullying because they know that they will never be caught. People are committing suicide as a consequence. The envy and the promotion of that and the bodily shame, it's all out there. That's Web 2.0. Web 3 will start to resolve a lot of these problems, whether it be decentralized computing, decentralized communication. But I'll tell you what we all have to look forward to at the finish line, and maybe this is the wrap, is it's all about your choices. It's all about where and how you spend your money. It's all about what you choose to cooperate with. Thank goodness we have Mahatma Gandhi. All right, in the 1950s, Gandhi led the civil war against the British nation, England, that took control over India 100 years beforehand. You're talking about 1 billion people that followed Gandhi's advice. Number one, they stopped buying British clothing. They started to weave and make their own clothes like their parents had done. They didn't have to go back too many generations to remember how to make clothes. The second one was that they started to grow their own food more, and they stopped purchasing imported food from England. The third thing is that when they protested and when the English soldiers beat them up with metal bars, and this is really astounding, but this is what happened at the well. I can't remember the name of the event, but the protesters, just as soon as somebody was struck down bleeding and could not get up, another person stood in their place to be hit by the baton until the British soldiers were weary from swinging their batons. Boy, that certainly sends a very powerful message. But
Yes.
here's the bottom line. It is our choice about cooperation. These entities, I mean, are they people? Whatever they are, Facebook, Amazon, the crazy people that are running the show, that are persecuting Black people, persecuting children, persecuting women, right? You don't have to cooperate with them. It's your choice, but you will if you're not paying attention, because they know you're not paying attention. And that's how they get your money. That's how they get your time. And most importantly, that's how they secure the currency of the universe, your consciousness. So be careful about what you spend your money on. Do the research, find out, buy locally, buy from people you know, start growing food, think about making clothes, think about making anything that you would enjoy making. And I tell you, money will change the world faster than an A bomb. There you have it.
Yes, I'll be focusing on this podcast and the talent economy. And that's about it, because that's what I'm passionate about. That's where I can deliver value and build something of value for the world, my children and their children, hopefully. And, besides work and my family, everything else is a distraction and probably connected to Web 2. So I don't want to be there.
Bingo. Bingo. And then we all have to remember, right, that the most important thing is to be positive. It's okay to spot something that's evil, help the person that's getting hurt. But at the end of the day, you're not going to cooperate with those entities. And at the end of the day, you have to then say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to. That's a statement. That's a negative statement. What am I going to do? Now that I've freed up all this time because I'm not, looking to see who has thumbs up my latest post, think about how much time you're going to recapture because of that. What are you going to do with that time? You're going to teach yourself an instrument, teach yourself a language, spend more time with your kid, get the baseball mitt, throw the ball with your kid, go to the Walmart, take a look at the seeds, take a look at the seeds that are for sale. Do you like vegetables? Why are you not growing one in your backyard? You can grow lettuce and it will just continue to grow. Every time that you cut off enough for dinner, the next day there are certain lettuces that will have grown 4 and 5 inches. You can have an unlimited supply of lettuce if you like lettuce. If your grocery store doesn't have the right stuff, if you hear that the romaine lettuce industry has just been taken out by some kind of a bacterial contamination, how many times does the romaine lettuce industry have to be taken out by contamination? Grow your own. Think about it. What do you spend your money on? What are you not spending your money on? Take pride in that. You want to start to conquer your depression? You want to start to conquer loneliness? Listen to these meaning casts. Listen to what Joe's talking about when it comes to not using Facebook and joining community groups, thanks to things like Geneva, alternatives. Cooperate with those solutions. Use more crypto. Extend your hand out and ask the next person you see if there's something that you can help them with. You will not be lonely. Your depression will begin to lift because these are the symptoms of waking up.
People, I hope you just felt that wave rushing through your frontal lobe, and then over your skull like I just did. That kind of calm, optimistic, reassuring, life-giving message that Jim just gave there, because it's so true. It is so true. And I am so excited to go out. Jim, I've been very much not focused on the talent economy.
Okay.
And I've been focused on immediate gratification. Let's just say, for lack of a better term and for sake of time. All right. But I'm telling you right now, I've never been more convinced after the events of the last week, not just today. And things do happen for a reason, Jim. I'm not more convinced than I am more convinced than ever before that the work on the talent economy is absolutely essential, and I'm going to be on it with a lot more focus now. It's hard not to get that immediate gratification. Going back to my observation on people and their willingness to ignore obvious travesties and horrible situations in the world for fear of not getting that immediate gratification of the acceptance and the like and the all the things that you look for from people. The most important thing, Jim said it, is how you spend your time and what you give attention to. If you do these things in a pure way, focused on a high aim that is able to provide the most good to the most people, you're there. Just be patient.
Oh, I love it. Oh, the hair on my arms are standing on the end here. And that is, we must end on a positive note. All of us must always end on a positive note in every conversation. Even when we're complaining about our boss, you have to find that silver lining, because that's where the power is. That's what enables people to wake up. You've got to have the positivity. There's always something to be thankful for. You be thankful for the fact that you're breathing. If you see a glass and it's half full with water, there's a reason why it's not half empty. It's because there is water in there. There's water. You should be glad and grateful that there is a glass half filled. Could have been full, but that would have been nice, but it's only half filled. Even if it was a quarter full, it's not 3/4 empty. There's water in there. You need water. All right. So being positive, Joe, you just said it, be patient. Let's start to not expect and not be addicted to immediate gratification. Let's know that the soul satisfying effort takes time. It may not be easy. It might be hard. The talent economy is going to take time. There are people that are going to criticize you. There are people that are going to laugh at you. But Gandhi did say, first they laugh at you. No, first they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they oppose you. And then you win. India, almost today, 1.8 billion people? They're free. Half of them speak English, thanks to that occupation for 150 years. But their coinage doesn't have a picture of the Queen on it. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know what the story is with the central bank and India. But from the perspective of the people who are living their life, they're able to speak their own language. They're able to live their own culture. They're able to worship the religion that they choose. And no one today in India is complaining about the British occupying the country, because it doesn't happen. And the Gandhi and all of the people of that country followed his advice to basically not cooperate economically or socially with the occupiers of their country. Now, today we have people, entities, who knows what they are? They want to occupy your mind. And you are in charge of your mind. You are the sovereign of your mind. No one can tell you what to think. Not yet.
Jim?
Is that it?
Let's just end it there, my friend.
Okay.
Because we could keep going. We could. And you know what? We'll just have to pick it up on another episode.
We will. There's a lot more to say. And there's another podcast.
My mother used to say a long time ago, whenever there would be any really catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. She would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. Even just on the sidelines. That's why I think that if news programs could make a conscious effort of showing rescue teams, of showing medical people, anybody who is coming into a place where there's a tragedy, to be sure that they include that. Because if you look for the helpers, you'll know that there's hope. She would say, always always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. She would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. She would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. She would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers.